cross on the side of a car is not deterrent enough for a missile. Children, written in all caps, is good enough reason to collapse a building. A military target inside cancer ward. I guess the targets were hiding under the pillows. Kindergarten liberated from doors and windows. A collapsed wall opens up like a dollhouse. You collect your stuff and praise God for the three of them standing. Lie after lie after lie. Vicious victory in the chats for every life taken. Dictator doesn't reflect his tribe, but this tribe is worthy of a dictator. The ones who celebrate despair will reap their fair share of it. When a ship holding grain blows up, you should remember the famines before it. Back in 31, 33, a bold Stalin is a worthy replacement. Oil doesn't wash away the blood of your hands, but makes buyers complacent. When a whole nation is branded illiterate, brain dead, guess there is a reason why they're always painted in red. So actually, as I read the poem that you just listened to, I realized that probably outside of people who are very in tune with everything that's happening in Ukraine, every news report, there's probably a lot of subtle things that I'm hinting on or talking about that you probably might not recognize or might not even know. So I thought I'd just go line by line actually explain, because actually the whole poem is completely based on actual real life tragedies that happened, that continue happening, and that's the whole point exactly. So Red Cross on the side of a car is not deterrent enough for a missile. So this is in reference to 12th of September 2024, when actually the Red Cross trucks were hit during the shelling in eastern region, in Donetsk region, and actually 3 Red Cross employees died during that shelling and 2 were injured. So that was atrocious, that was awful, and of course the trucks are very clearly marked. I think it's very international. The Red Cross symbol is very international. Everybody knows it's humanitarian aid, right? It's not non-military. There is really just as peaceful organization as possible, I think. And they were actually in the region because they were unloading the coal and supplies to help people of the region actually survive the winter, which I think makes it even worse, if it's possible to be worse. Next, children written in all caps is a good enough reason to collapse a building. References an awful tragedy that happened actually in the beginning of war. So on 16th of March 2022, Russians bombed the Donetsk Academic Regional Drama Theatre in Mariupol, and they completely obliterated it. Why do I say children written in all caps? Well, at the beginning of war, a lot of us, my family included, to try and protect ourselves, to try to show that we're just civilians, just peaceful people who have no connection to the military, we are not targets, there will be no gain from attacking us, right, or anything like that. So people would, for example, put little pieces of white fabric, for example, around their cars, or as in this case, around the theater, people had written in Russian, children. Both sides, so when you are in the plane, you can actually clearly see that it's not only a theater, for example, had the same kind of signature. A lot of residential building in front of them, for example, or on the rooftops, I remember, had the children written to show the planes dropping bombs that here are children sheltering. Like, if you have no mercy for anyone else, children are sheltering here. Like, please just leave it be. It does not work. It did not work event on 16th of March 2022. It was completely obliterated. There were a lot of civilians sheltering. There were videos, you can find clearly the videos of people who were inside before the event, before the tragedy, who filmed others, who filmed how did it look like where were they sheltering, and there are also accounts of people who have survived the event and the tragedy, and they talk in great detail how that happened. But to be honest, I cannot read something like that. So if you would like to learn more, you can just find it on the internet. I won't also link that. I cannot. Next one. Military target inside a cancer ward. That's of course in reference to Ahmedit Children's Hospital direct missile hit. So it happened, and I talked in my previous poem about that actually. It happened on July 8th, 2024. So the missile directly hit. There is now video evidence of a missile directly hitting the hospital. It was not shot down, it was not malfunctioning or something like that, right? It was not going to some other target, it was specifically targeting the hospital. It's Ahmedit Children's Hospital is a famous Ukrainian hospital. I don't know, maybe it's famous in Europe as well, but I definitely always knew that, and everybody who lives especially in Kyiv knows about that. And as a child, I also even was referred to this hospital because it's a great hospital. It's I know they do some very good surgeries with heart, so they help a lot with heart diseases and stuff like that. So a whole wing was destroyed by this hit. Of course, the nearby buildings were also destroyed. That's just a given in a hit like that. And so if you looked at the pictures, maybe you haven't, there were just sick children. There are sick children who have cancer, children who needed dialysis, for example. A lot of them were on dialysis and they had to be very quickly moved as fast as possible. People died. As much as I remember, a nurse has died in this tragic incident. So it was awful, and there were the excuse of military target doesn't even hold true. It's just it's so close also to the center of Kyiv. There's just residential building around. There's really nothing. So that was awful. Next one. Kindergarten liberated from doors and windows. A collapsed wall opens up like a dollhouse. So that's actually a very personal story for me, because it also happened in the beginning of war. So actually 18th of March 2022, debris from a missile fell in the residential neighborhood. It took off completely a whole wall of a building. There's just the whole furniture. You can I very clearly remember the pictures. Furniture still stands, but the wall is just completely gone. So it's completely cleanly taken off. And there is also a kindergarten nearby that was severely damaged, awfully damaged. And that's my neighborhood. Literally, my house. You can see my house from that place. It's so close. It's 10 minutes by foot, I think. And when I saw the pictures, because of course, if you live here, it's so easy to recognize it, and it was just devastating and heartbreaking to see that, because I don't know how your cities might be built, but of course, residential areas usually have a hospital very close by, a few schools, a few kindergartens, right? And everybody, and everything is enclosed by residential buildings. So really, when something like that happens, just residential, very important infrastructure gets damaged. yeah, and people died and people suffered, and the building has been restored. I've seen it restored when I visited Kyiv last year, so there is at least that. Next one, vicious victory in the chats for every life taken. Well, I don't actually know how much people in the West know about that, but there is this famous messaging app, Telegram. It's, I think, like originally Russian. Maybe you actually heard about that recently, because the owner or the CEO, I don't know who he is, has been arrested because Telegram is very famous for just illegal, crazy stuff happening on there. Like, everybody knows about this, I think. And now there is some investigation about that, but nonetheless, what does it reference? The poem and this line is actually that there are a lot of chats. It's not only limited to chats, of course. There are a lot of comments everywhere, but a lot of Russians have special chats where they celebrate every hit. They urge the soldiers to be more merciless, to hit more, to kill more. They celebrate children. If children have suffered, they celebrate, destroyed buildings and stuff like that. So that's the reference that I'm creating here. It's absolutely real, That's the type of people they are. Next one. When a ship holding grain blows up. Well, I don't know how much you know about this, but actually Ukraine is a big seller of grain. It used to be, right, before all of this. And it used to supply a lot of grain to the world, to Egypt, Africa, right, everything. With Russia occupying the sea, like you probably heard about that, there is a ginormous problem with actually delivering the grain, right? Because it so often gets hit, like the reserves get hit and destroyed, and it's just crazy because that's just such an important supply to so many people. But on 12th of September, civilian cargo ship that was carrying actually Ukrainian grain was hit by Russians in the Black Sea, and it's wasn't even anywhere near Russia. It was actually in the Romanian waters. Was hit nonetheless. It was headed for Egypt. It was headed to Istanbul, and the grain was headed to Egypt in the end. So yeah, the strike was confirmed by the Romanian Coast Guard, and no one was injured, but it was hit nonetheless. Yeah, because Ukraine is one of the world's leading grain producers and exporters. And it has been shipping around 4 million tons of grain each month through this Black Sea corridor that we have established through a lot of work. And then exactly after that, so when a ship holding grain blows up, you should remember the famines before it back in 31, 33. So that's a reference to Holodomor. It's an awful act of genocide against Ukrainians, specifically Ukrainian villagers and farmers. So a lot of Ukrainians were actually pushed out to villages, right? And it was hard to live in the city because the city was full of Russians and speaking in the Russian language, and a lot of course, villagers spoke Ukrainian, their native language, right? They didn't need to conform to anything. But there is, of course, before that there was collectivization, stuff like that, where Soviet Union declared that they had equal right to all the grain, right, even if they had no contribution to growing it and cultivating it and stuff like that. And then Holodomor happened, which is the biggest travesty and just an awful act of genocide towards Ukrainians. You can read about that. There is a lot of information, a lot of accounts. It's horrible. It's a very hard read. So next one we have oil doesn't wash away the blood of your hands. That's a job towards the fact that European Union has been for quite some time after the beginning of war and still in some ways buying gas and oil, Russian gas and oil. Russia still gains quite a lot of money from that. money that goes to fuel war. You can without doubt say that. Think what you will about that. Next one and last one, I have that I guess there is a reason why they're always painted in red. So did not encode a particular reference to that. What I tried to maybe mimic was the fact that like the Red Army, right, the Soviet Army, the red was their representation also. I don't know, like, you know, sometimes like that maybe when you don't get enough education, when you don't or like if you're not educated properly, probably violence for you is a bit of a more acceptable choice. That's what I was hinting at. And so like painted in red meaning that you know, just being splashed by blood, right? So being covered in blood. Also caught red-handed, right? We can also say that. So the last line is up for interpretation, but that's just a few. I will not say which one I intended to put there, but yeah, you can make your own choice and you can create your own associations if you'd like. Yeah, so that's the poem. I hope my explanation made it a little bit clearer, a little bit easier to understand what exactly I'm referencing to, because I realized that probably it's quite subtle and maybe the explanation is in order. Thank you for watching.